Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening for another very special edition of WOWSA Live with our host, Ned Dennison. Ned?
Hello, everyone. We have a special guest with us, Aiden, today. Aiden, tell us about your open water swimming, which is happening last year and this year, please.
Yeah, so I'm very new to the open water swimming world. Sort of the biggest swim I've done is 6K, which was more of like a leisure swim with swim trekking here in the UK. Otherwise, it's just been like small little events, but mostly social, meeting new people, and a lot of solo swims, sort of just under the 2K mark after work.
I think one of the great things about this interview is it's actually forced you to turn one of your dreams into a goal in the last couple of days. But tell us about your recently signed up goal and some of your other dreams for moving up in distance.
Yeah, so I've just signed up for the Jubilee 10K, which is about 9 weeks away now. Something we spoke about in the interview prep, and it's something I'd wanted to do, but I didn't think I'd be able to do it early this year. And then I had a look at its move date and realized the training is just about achievable if I really focus on it. And I think with this interview, yeah, I thought really should go for it and sort of do that first 10K, which hopefully is the start for something bigger. But I don't know. I guess we'll look back at this interview and think, oh, we should have known, or oh, it was never going to work out.
And some of those other dreams, you want to share them with us?
Yeah, again, more like leisure swims, but things like swimming Alcatraz. There's a few swims around there that I like to do in San Francisco. I'm really interested in ice swimming. I'd love to do an ice kilometer, and also some of the shorter, more fun, competitive swims. So yeah.
What was your swimming background up till your start in open water?
So not massive. I've never swam competitively or anything like that. I learned to swim when I was 3 or 4 with my grandfather. He sort of taught me with swim coaches, but it wasn't like a routine thing. Again, it was more leisure activities. Oh, we'll go swimming today because it's a nice day, mostly indoors. And then I was a member at Lido. But it was more because it had a really nice hot tub and a really nice sauna that I got into it. And the swimming was just a side effect that you had to do to cool down. But yeah, last summer I just started swimming sort of April time and just caught the bug and can't keep me out of it now.
Your move to open water coincided with some other pretty big life decisions. Can you tell us about how that's all come together?
Yeah, so I started swimming outdoors because I was undergoing some fertility treatment to ensure that I can have my own children in the future. So in order to store sperm, you have to make sure you keep your body nice and cool. So I was told the saunas and the hot tubs were not a good idea. And I needed something to fill my time with. And I'm just very lucky that we had a really nice river where I was living in the time in Reading. The Thames goes straight through it. So it was like a natural thing just to jump in the river and swim, just to sort of mentally switch off and focus on something else.
And your biggest journey in life?
Yeah, so definitely a big part of my life. I came out as transgender around 5 years ago, and that was definitely the point where I stopped swimming. Even socially at that point, just due to the nature of a lot of swimming pools where it's very gendered and there's a lot of pressure on your body. I didn't think it was the right thing for me to be doing.
So this is the difficulty of to get to the water, you need to decide which changing room you're going to go through. Tell us why the open water is a little bit easier on that.
Yeah, I mean, the open water is so easy. Most of the time, especially if it's not an event, it's literally just you rock up, you pop your swim stuff on, or you're already in it, and you just jump into the water. Sometimes you're the only person around, so there's there's no one really there to inform that. There's no one to police it because it doesn't belong to anyone. The river sort of belongs to everyone and anyone that's around. And really, that's the beauty of it, that it's just such an accessible sport for everyone, not just for genders, but for finances as well. It's a very cost-effective sport to get into, certainly when you start.
So when I'm going down to the ocean, some of the people have robes. Some of the people will have the towel dance, I call it. We're all busy. We're all busy extracting our bits and putting our other stuff on, and putting some grease on, and looking for goggles and caps. There aren't a lot of prima donnas at 6:15 in the morning this morning when I got changed. And no one really cares, and no one's really interested whether your towel drops or not, because they're just trying to keep their own towel organized and everything like that.
Yeah, that's exactly it. It's very difficult to try and do anything, one, early in the morning if you're swimming, but two, down by the river. But there's no need, because sort of almost societal gender roles don't exist. When you're swimming, you're either a good swimmer or you're on your way to be a good swimmer, and that's it. So yeah, like you said, you're trying to do your towel shuffle dance. I've been with a lot of people that swim that don't even bother with the towels anymore, because there's no point. It's very difficult. A lot of friends have had, like you said, the big robes. The dry robes are very popular over here. I don't personally have one. They're just very bulky to carry around. But maybe with the Jubilee 10K, maybe I need to look at something a bit warmer.
So Ian, you may be the first person that many of our viewers have ever seen who's trans. Tell us about how you came to this realization, and then what we all kind of know is that there's a whole lot of steps to what people call transitioning. Help educate everybody and give them a feeling for the journey you've been through.
Yeah, sure. So I came to the realization, that must be 6-7 years ago now, that I just wasn't comfortable living within a male gender role. Sort of where I was working, there were a lot of expectations put on me as a male to do maybe some of more of like the heavier tasks, the heavy lifting, and to do less predominantly female roles. You do get that within the restaurant industry, and I didn't like it, but I didn't know why. So I sort of was trying to understand that, and I was talking through with a few friends about it, and it was starting to really trouble me. So I was talking to a therapist about it, and it was really probing as to why don't you like that? What upsets you? Why don't you think you can do that? And yeah, that sort of came to the realization that I didn't view myself as a male, and actually when I looked back at my childhood growing up, a lot of the disappointments I'd faced, a lot of the uncertainty and unhappiness that I'd faced growing up, and also as a teenager, was due to how I viewed myself, not as male, but more as female. So that was, I think once you realize something like that, you're like, okay, I can't keep living as myself. I need to be more true to myself, rather than just living as I was. So that was a discussion I had with some very close family, it's a very small group, and some friends who sort of supported that and supported me looking into it, which was great. You said, yeah, there's it's quite a journey. Certainly the medical side, the medical legal side, is quite a journey, and a thing that can either go very, very quickly if you can afford to pay for private. If you have a sponsor or you have anyone that you know that's gone through it, it can be a lot quicker. Certainly in the UK, it is a drawn-out process at the moment. So the first thing I did was sort of just spoke to the GP, and he referred me to a specialist clinic that would undergo that, and then you're just regularly meeting with clinicians that will either agree that you are female and that's how you want to live, or they will say you're not female enough. Which is a very weird thing to sometimes have someone say after you've been living as yourself for 2 years, and you're going to meet them, and you've never met them before, and you're just worried they're going to say, no, you're not female. And they're the ones that can potentially slow down your medical and legal transition. But certainly the general steps are realization, coming out. You can, if you're very young, you can take hormone blockers till you make a decision on what you want to do. If you're past the age of 18, then you may choose to take a hormone replacement therapy, whether that's testosterone as a male, or estrogen if you want to be female like myself. And then if you wanted to, you could have vocal therapy. That's not something I've been able to have yet, but hopefully in the future. And you can have surgery if you didn't react well to estrogen. You could have like some chest implants put in. And if you were not happy with your lower waist, you can have that changed to the alternate sex. But it's a major surgery. So not everyone goes through that.
And then you've, go ahead, sorry.
Oh no, and then you've just got the legal side of it. So in the UK at the moment, you need to be living as yourself for 2 years in your preferred gender role, and you need to provide evidence that is the role that you've lived in, both in work and social, and that you don't want to change back. It's very vague wording like that. You need a medical professional, basically. And you need to have evidence that you've lived as yourself, whether that's photos, documents, supporting letters from friends. So it's quite a big thing. But once it's done, you sort of send it off, and then it comes back, and they write to you as you, and legally you can then change your passport and your driving license. They didn't make me take my test again, which was good. I was a bit worried about that. They just changed the name on it.
We're not having a conversation about women drivers. We are not going down that road.
Yeah, sorry, Ned.
No, and how has your reception been generally in open water? And the various places you swim. Give us a kind of an overview.
So the open water community I swim with probably most is in Reading, where I grew up. I moved to London early this year, so I've started swimming at the Serpentine with the Serpies, which are some really great, amazing people that have sort of welcomed me open-armed, but also not made a big fuss about it. I've just sort of like see me as me. I swim with the Royal Docks community, which seems to be like a really great thing. It's something I've started swimming through our lockdown over here, meeting some of them. It's a great team down there. And I swim at our local Lido, London Fields, which is great. And also with the Hampstead Ladies Pond, which again has been absolutely great, bar one exception. I think that the open water community, whether it's events or just a small swim, is very open. And a lot of people seem to want to just understand and want to learn a bit more. And sometimes they're just worried to ask questions in case they upset me. But I'm very open. I'm always happy just to say, just ask whatever you're thinking, just ask, because someone else is probably wanting to understand as well that's with you.
I think most people can kind of understand the challenge or dilemma of picking a changing room to get to the water. The Hampstead Ladies Pond is a whole different story. I don't know that a lot of people understand the setup up there, but to describe to us physically how that works up in the ponds.
Yeah. So first of all, like it's just the most beautiful location. Sort of north central London. Quite some steep hills in there. They're like little reservoirs. And you've got the Kenwood Ladies Pond. You've got the male pond, and you've got a mixed bathers pond. The ladies pond is sort of lined with trees. It's very private. It's got sort of all fenced off, and you walk up to a gate, and it's always closed. You just sort of open it, but it's like only female bathers beyond this point. Certainly when I started swimming, which was February time, there wasn't many people around. And it's very much a thing. There's no one's going to hold your hand and walk in with you. You have to make that decision. Which I did, which was amazing. You just walk down, maybe it's about 150 meters to the changing rooms. And there's like a pontoon, a dock there. And they have lifeguards all year round as well, which is great. But it's more I think it's not the women changing room that's the issue, because some people use them, some people don't, some people prefer to get changed outside. But it's not, they're not up, if anyone had an issue with it, they're not upset with you using the changing room, they're upset with you using the whole pond. And it's a very weird understanding when you talk to someone, and I did have this conversation with someone, and they said, no, I don't want you in my pond. And I was like, well, it's not really your pond, it belongs to every woman, which I am one. And she felt quite very dejected, and sort of sulked off. But again, every other person I've come into contact with has been absolutely fine. And it wasn't that she didn't want to get changed around me, she just didn't want her in her pond.
We talked about Serpentine a couple of days ago, and you kind of said you're only allowed to go there every other day. And I was going, gender discrimination, but then you corrected me. How does it work at the Serpentine?
So at the moment, the Serpentine, they had a big boom in membership. So I joined back in February. Through the lockdown, when they started to reopen, they had 1,200 members join in 7 days, because it was the only place to swim in London. So they very promptly closed again. They had some talks with the parks, and they decided they would open they're open every day, but to alternate the members by half, they just put a line down the middle of the surnames. So my surname's Elgeti, so I can swim alternate days. Some Williams can swim on the other half, and it's a good thing because it's cut the numbers in half, but it's cut my swimming friends in half as well, unfortunately. But they have now opened it up. Before 7 a.m. anyone can go, so it's still nice and quiet before 7 a.m. But after that, a lot of swimmers come before work, and that's when we're back to the odd days.
And you're swimming in several different places. What's your impression of the size of the swimming community? Is it tens of thousands of faceless people, or is it the same gang of insiders who pitch up at stupid times, at stupid places, at stupid temperatures all the time?
I think so. At the Serpentine, there was about 100 to 150 regular winter swimmers, so they sort of swim all year round. I'd like to include myself in that, but I haven't been there a full year yet. I think the summer swimmers, there are a lot more, whether it's triathletes coming out, people that are doing longer open waters, that are coming out of the pool. But the Serpentine, there's a strong, there's no rules, there's nothing written on it. There's a distinct lack of wetsuits and distance swimmers, although it is very, very well known for producing channel swimmers, especially. But yeah, no, everyone's really friendly. And in London, it seems quite small. Although there is a lot of people and a lot of members there, they are also members everywhere else. And people do just tend to go wherever fits them most. The Serpentine, you can only swim until, at the moment, 9:30 in the morning, but regularly 9 a.m. in the morning. So I think people like to have different options throughout the day of where they can swim in London.
Okay. We talked about the first possible conflict, which is changing rooms, or in the case of the pond, the actual pond itself. The other possible conflict that I see would be in some of the competitions. And I use an example from Cork, Ireland. We have a famous swim called the Vibes and Scribes Lee Swim. There 300-400 people compete, and there must be 100 medals, gold, silver, and bronze, wetsuit, non-wetsuit, male and female. So probably 30% of the people receive a medal. I'm just imagining the situation where you go ahead and you compete, and you get third in the women's category, wetsuit or togs, and the number 4 lady has a problem with that. Have you, as part of your journey, have you taken a Superman's body and joined the competition with the women's group with some massive advantages?
Certainly not. I don't have a massive frame. I'm 5'10". Quite a few of my friends that do swim competitively, that are female, tend to be quite a few inches taller, quite a bit broader. I think in terms of the person that's fourth, there's always going to be discussions about that. We see it in the media all the time. There's always little things popping up here and there. And as I think as you get older, the gap becomes less, and that conversation is happening less in general as well. But I wouldn't say it gives me an advantage in terms of the hormone replacement therapy that I'm undergoing. It makes it harder to be in the range of a high competing athlete with a high level of testosterone, because that's something that's looked at under such scrutiny by my doctors that are trying to keep it as low as possible, sort of at the very bottom of the female normal range. But sort of the levels that I'm ever going to be swimming, I don't think it's going to be hundreds of a second between me and the next person. And if it is, maybe I'll just let them go for the sake of it. Yeah.
Trust me, it could be 12 minutes, and somebody at some point is going to stand up and say, "Oi, you stole my medal." When I look at the broader LGBTQIA community and movement, what are the positives and negatives for you? There's a lot of press now. There's a lot of interest. There's a lot of commitment in a lot of quarters. But what does it all mean to you?
Yeah, so for me, it's a great thing. Certainly the Pride events around the world are a great thing just to remind you of who you are and where you've come from, and that what you're doing is the right thing, and it is celebrated. I'm certainly very lucky that I don't face any sort of direct discrimination that I'm aware of. But it can have its downsides. It like you said, it's very public, and a lot of people want to share their opinion on certain things that are going on. Whether at the moment they're looking in the UK whether you can just change your gender by saying, "This is how I now want to live," and the government are looking at whether they should just say, "Okay, that's fine. We trust your ability to decide," and approve it rather than having to go through a 2-year process. But that makes people question it, and you just tend to have a lot more discussions, and those discussions at the moment, they're coming up every day, whether it's in work or out of work, and it can be quite a drain when actually I'm trying to focus on just what I'm doing, or if I'm just trying to focus on swimming, or I'm just trying to eat out in a restaurant. I don't want those conversations all the time, but that's not something I'm lucky enough not to have, and you have to have those conversations all the time. That's what activism is about.
What is your work, and how has it been impacted by COVID?
So my full-time job, I work in a cookery school, just doing all the prep work, welcoming our customers to the day, and trying to get them to as close to drunk as possible without making sure they're in charge of knives and drunk. We have closed due to COVID. We can't do distancing, and certainly no one wants to come into central London to cook at the moment. So I'm on a contract with the NHS on a convalescent plasma trial. So we're taking blood and just seeing if that will help people recover from COVID, because we're giving them blood that has the antibodies in from another person. And then outside of that, I just run my own business. So I work with restaurants and local restaurants that have issues with food hygiene ratings, and just work to improve their practices. So it's a very hands-on role. In fact, every role I have is very hands-on, very people-based.
And the NHS you mentioned is the National Health Service in London. In Great Britain. The impact on your future surgery with COVID?
So all my treatment has been delayed. My hormone therapy is ongoing. The waiting list for speech therapy is just getting bigger. I'm luckily on that list, but it's been delayed by about 4 to 5 months, they reckon. Could be longer, just because they'll be seeing less patients in that time frame. In terms of the surgery preparation I was undergoing, it has to be restarted. So that's been delayed again by a full year, which is disappointing, but you understand what's going on.
Well, Eden, we've come to about the end of the interview. First of all, welcome to the world of open water swimming. I hope your experience of finding a warm welcome with only a tiny few objectors continues. And we look forward to you becoming a marathon swimmer in 9 weeks after the Jubilee swim. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you so much. Thank you.